In this episode, I'm joined by Elle Russ, a best-selling author, health coach, and leading voice in thyroid and hormone health. Elle Russ is the #1 best-selling author of the Paleo Thyroid Solution, a groundbreaking book that has transformed thyroid health worldwide and has been translated into multiple languages. She is also the creator of the Ultimate Thyroid Course, the most comprehensive thyroid education program available, empowering people to finally get the answers conventional medicine has missed. Elle's expertise has been featured in Mind, Body, Green, Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, Prevention, HuffPost, and countless top health podcasts. Through her work, she has helped thousands in over 20 countries reclaim their energy, metabolism, and vitality. Known for her unapologetic results-driven approach, Elle blends cutting-edge science with real-world strategies that deliver lasting change for those failed by mainstream medicine. Learn more at elleruss.com. That's ELLERUSS.com. You can also get her free thyroid guide, plus a video series at freethyroidguide.com. Elle's also the host of The Elle Russ Show, so make sure that you check out her podcast. I've learned so much from listening to her show. I'm so excited to have her here today to talk about thyroid health, energy, and how to truly support our body's natural metabolism. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to make an important note. The information shared in this episode is meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Every individual is unique, and if you suspect a thyroid or hormonal issue, please consult your healthcare provider for proper evaluation and guidance. Also, I want to emphasize that this discussion is not intended as criticism of doctors or the medical profession. As a physician myself, I have deep respect for my colleagues and for the challenges of modern healthcare. However, Elle's story is a powerful, real-life example of how our fast-paced healthcare system can sometimes leave people searching for answers, and how empowering patients with knowledge can bridge that gap. My goal with this conversation is to open up a dialogue, encourage understanding, and inspire better collaboration between patients and practitioners. Now, without further ado, on to the interview. Well, hi, Ellen. Welcome to my show. Thank you so much for coming on to my podcast today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love talking about this topic, as you know, so I'm ready to jump into it.
Yeah. So for those who may not be familiar with your work, could you just share a bit about your background and what led you to focus so deeply on thyroid health?
Sure, it was totally accidental. Like a lot of health experts, I had to solve my own problem, and therefore I kind of became an expert in it because no doctors could help me. So what happened was I was born in 1973, so everyone can do the math on my age. But when I was around 30, I started to have some really random symptoms. I kept going to doctors. They kept testing my thyroid incorrectly, telling me it wasn't my thyroid. I lost 7 years of my 30s due to uninformed doctors about this topic, and I had no choice. And at that time, there were no podcasts. There was no YouTube, Facebook, like there was nothing for me to go to. So I had to learn this on my own, and I had to actually fix myself. So I live in Los Angeles with some of the best doctors in the entire world. And I went to experts that charged $600 for an appointment and still didn't figure it out. I had doctors fail me every step of the way. Either they didn't know how to test me right, or they tested me right but didn't know how to analyze it right, or they tested me right, analyzed it right, didn't know how to treat me right. So, there's all these levels. So I literally had to become my own expert and solve my own problem. I had to order my thyroid hormones from other countries over the internet. I had to do it myself, a very scary place to be. In the United States, we spend a lot of money per month on insurance. I spend like $350 a month just in case I get hit by a car, right? You know what I mean? And to get a yearly mammogram or something. So, I spent at that time like thousands of dollars I didn't have going out of network, trying to figure out how to solve this. And at the end of the day, the person that solved it was me. And it shouldn't have been, because I have a philosophy degree. I hate math and science, and I was really bad at it. So that also goes to show everyone you can become just as knowledgeable about this topic as I have. It's just that the one thing standing between patients and getting better is the following. There's either two problems. It's one of two. You either have an uninformed doctor who doesn't know what they're talking about because no one was taught, and you can say that for yourself. You don't, you guys weren't taught this stuff, and they don't know how to treat you or how to fix you. All right, that's a problem. But the second issue is this. You're uninformed. You don't know anything about your condition because, why should you, right? You didn't go to medical school. This isn't your job, but sorry to tell everyone that you have to learn about it because you might know more than your doctor. And the only way to help your doctor help you and help practice medicine, it's the practice of medicine with you, is to know all that you can. If you are ailed by anything, become a amateur expert in the topic, and don't hand your entire health over to a doctor, because I wasted years doing that. Wasted years, had to get gynecological surgery. I had a polyp in my uterus. I had all of these things develop that would have never developed had they not let my hypothyroidism keep going, and all these uninformed doctors weren't in my path. So that's been my goal for the past 15 years, and I coach people all over the world and have all sorts of resources for everyone to learn about this. And in fact, doctors also learn from me and take my course because they weren't taught this. But it's extremely critical for life, happiness, and health and longevity. And, it's something everyone needs to know about.
Yeah, you've been through your own thyroid health journey like you've touched on. And I have to say, when I first heard you share your story, it really resonated with me, especially because, like you, I was also diagnosed with PCOS earlier in my life. And I was this low-fat, low-carb, low-calorie, chronic cardio girl, like you said that you were as well. So could you just tell us a bit about your personal journey and what ultimately inspired you then to write your book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution?
Sure. So the first symptom I got was that I was getting my period all of the time. Like every couple of weeks. I was 30 years old, never had any issues, no issues in my family with any of the women. And I just started to get my period all the time. So I went to the doctor. I'm dumb. I don't know what's going on. I'm just I keep bleeding. And the solution was, let's put you on the birth control pill. Not, why is a 30-year-old healthy woman bleeding all the time? Maybe we should look into the causes of that. Not that. Let's slap a Band-Aid on it. Well, they did. They gave me the pill. I bled through it. Gave me another pill. Bled through it. I went through 4 pills. By the end of this time, my hair had been falling out. I had over 30 symptoms. I had a polyp in my uterus and a fibroid. I was misdiagnosed with PCOS. I did not have PCOS. I had hypothyroidism-induced PCOS. Went away, never had a problem with it the rest of my life since then. And I had a slew, my hair was falling out. I have obviously a big, if you're watching this, I have a big head of curly hair. I lost curliness in my hair. My hair was falling out by the handfuls. I was constipated. I'm 5 feet 2 inches tall. I went from about 115 pounds to about 160 while working out 2 hours every day and managing calories. So I was falling apart and it was a disaster. And so I went through 25 or more doctors in Los Angeles, endocrinologists and specialists, and no one could help me. So then I dosed myself back to health, and I'm doing great. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God this is all over. Now I can get back to my life. And then I was doing well for a while, and then I had a secondary thyroid problem that came up. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. No way. Right? And so now I'm in it again, except for now this problem is one that definitely 99.99% of doctors have no idea what to do. So for the second time in 10 years, I was left in the dust by doctors, and I had to do it myself again, ordering medication from other countries, trying to dose myself, and I did it, and it worked. Shouldn't have had to do that twice in my life. Shouldn't be more of an expert than doctors. I really shouldn't be. And to this day, sometimes I get a little bitter about it. I'm like, this is not my job, right? Why did I have to do this? But either way, that's the story of a lot of people who have persevered. I was not willing to give up. I didn't care if I had to travel to the ends of the earth to figure it out. I was not going to live this way. And so thank God I did. And then, what the reason it inspired me to write the book is that everywhere I would go in the world, someone would randomly bring up their thyroid problem. It got kind of stupid after. I'd be on a hike in Hawaii by myself, and there'd be 2 women talking, and they'd be talking about a thyroid problem, and I'd be like, hi, sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. And it just kept going. And I would tell people oh, no, you have to go to your doctor and do this. And, finally it was just someone was like, you should write a book about this. I was like, yeah, I should, but that's not my jam. It's not my thing. And then it just got crazy to the point where, and then I met Mark Sisson, who founded Primal Kitchen and the Primal Blueprint, sort of one of the original authors on ancestral health. And he started a publishing company, and I said, hey, look, I got this idea. And he said, well, I've been wanting to publish a thyroid book. So we did that. It was a #1 bestseller. It was published in 2016. I'm looking forward to doing a second edition to it at some point. And then from there, I've just been coaching people all over the world and also have a course and free resources. So that was my story. And I did it all so that nobody has to do it. You don't have to waste 7 years of your life or longer, because I've got all of the protocols and the solutions for you, you know?
Yeah, I've learned so much about thyroid health through all of your just free stuff, your podcast and interviews and other podcasts, and through your website. So I'm really happy that you accepted my invitation to come here and educate my listeners, because many people have heard of the thyroid, but don't maybe fully understand what it does. So could you just explain a little bit the role of the thyroid gland in the body and why it's so important?
Yeah, so every single human and even animals have a thyroid gland, and it's right here. So if you're watching this, it's at the base of my neck. If you're a man, it's below your Adam's apple, and it is a butterfly-shaped gland that sits on your neck. It is the master gland of the human body. Now, not because I think it is or because I say it is, because it really is. Well, what does that mean? Well, the master gland, the thyroid, is in control of so many things. Your heart rate, your body temperature, the production and regulation of your sex hormones, how you think, the happiness chemicals, everything, your digestion, your metabolism. That's why when you become hypothyroid, low in thyroid hormones, everything's slow, sluggish, you're constipated, you can't burn fat, you're gaining weight, you're exhausted, like you have no energy. The opposite, which is hyperthyroid, overactive, that's different. You'll be pooping all of the time, you might lose a lot of weight, you're hot instead of cold, you're extra skinny for a while. Hyperthyroidism to a lot of people seems like a great benefit. They're like, what? I can eat whatever I want and lose weight. It'll eventually backfire on you and make you fat. That's a whole nother story. So we are like Goldilocks with the thyroid. Not too hot, not too cold. We want it just right. So let's give an example. Let's say you are born without a thyroid gland. This is very rare. We're talking like 1 in a gajillion. Don't even know the stats because it's so rare. But when it happens, if they don't catch it right away, that child will have intellectual disabilities or be dead. Period. End of story. Like, you can't survive without a thyroid gland. If you got your thyroid gland removed through a thyroidectomy because of thyroid cancer, you are dependent on taking thyroid hormones to live. And if you're on a stranded island with a bunch of people with thyroid glands, you're going to be the first one to die, because you're the one that doesn't have the thyroid hormones. It's just how it goes. So if you cannot live without a gland or the hormones that the thyroid gland gives, what do you think life's going to be like when you have subpar or lower levels of it? It's a slow death. You get this problem, you get PCOS, you get this, and then the doctors are patching you up, and you look like a freaking quilt, and no one is getting to the root of what's happening. And they're testing wrong, so they can't even get to the root of it, because like my doctor who looked at me, my first uninformed doctor, and I had many of them, I said, look at me, I work out all the time, I'm fat, I've got acne, my hair's falling out, like and he goes, well, it's not your thyroid, and he hit my gym shoes with his hand, and he said, just get out more. What? I was like, I literally think I might have swore at him, but I was like, I was like, I'm working out 2 hours a day, like I'm doing all the things. Because all he tested was a 1973 test, the year I was born, that nobody should ever be assessing your thyroid health on. So they're just uninformed. They didn't learn about this, and whatever they learned was 30, 40 years ago, and they keep patients sick. That's why I even have a career. I really shouldn't, right? Because if doctors just knew what they were doing, I wouldn't even have to talk to anybody. Excuse me. So the thyroid gland is essential. So let me just give an example. A 20-something, I think he was 25 at the time, a man came to me, and he had low testosterone. When he went and he was exhausted all the time, he couldn't think, and they tested his testosterone, and they're like, oh my gosh, you have low testosterone. Now, instead of, again, asking the question, why does a 25-year-old male have low testosterone, right? They gave him testosterone. Didn't solve the problem, because his problem was a thyroid problem. So when he came to me, then what we had to do was get him on the right thyroid hormones to get his thyroid right, get him off the testosterone. Now his real testosterone will come back, because when you introduce testosterone or any other hormones, it's going to shut down the body's own production. So that's a total mismatch. And the same thing happens for women. Like, I had PCOS. I didn't really have it. Those doctors were ready to put me on metformin for that. Do you know what I mean? Instead of going, why? Why is she having gynecological issues at age 30? Do you know what I'm saying? And so another example would be a woman who's got a hormonal imbalance because of the thyroid, because the thyroid is in control of the production and regulation of sex hormones. If you are a woman and you're young, you're not in menopause years like me, and you're in your 30s or younger, and you start having hormonal issues, some dumb doctor is going to be like, oh, well, we need to give you progesterone. No, you don't. Check the thyroid. You get this thyroid right, the hormones go right back up. Here's another example. Because it is in control of your body's metabolism, meaning fat burning, now you have a problem with people coming into the doctor and they're like, oh my gosh, your lipid panel, your cholesterol is too high. Check the thyroid. I also had horribly high cholesterol labs at age 30 when I was, doing all these healthy things I was telling you about, just because I was hypothyroid. Because when you don't have enough of the thyroid hormone T3 to burn the fat of the things you're eating and all of that, you get fat and you have issues with, right? So doctors want to put you on a statin. Another one would be blood pressure. That's another one. Oh my gosh, you have high blood pressure. Let's give you a pill. You have to check the thyroid. So as you can see, everything goes back to the thyroid. It should be ruled out also for psychiatric issues. When you are hypothyroid, you have major problems up here. We're talking thinking issues, cognitive issues, and depression issues. Do you really have depression, or is your thyroid screwed? I can't tell you how many people have been put on antidepressants wrongly. So here's the thing. I actually spoke with the head doctor at a psychiatric hospital in California, and I asked him, before you put anyone on these SSRIs or any of these drugs for depression, do you test the full panel for thyroid? They don't. They don't. So again, have you been put on an antidepressant and then it didn't work after 3 months? Well, that's probably why. Check the thyroid. Oh, I have a hormonal imbalance. Check the thyroid. My lipid panel's bad. Check the Everything has to go back to this because it's the master. It's in control of too many things. And you can easily fix this and fix all of the things at the same time. So that's why it's such a crucial gland, and it literally runs your life, even though nobody gives it a second thought until they have a problem.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the labs later because I've heard you talk about it and I learned it from you that some labs that I wasn't familiar with, you should be checking, you should actually be checking. So we'll get back to that later. But just to get a little bit technical and explain this in detail because I really like details. So, and correct me anywhere along the way, but just a short recap. So in our brain, we have a region that's called the hypothalamus, which releases TRH, or thyrotropin releasing hormone, which goes to the pituitary gland, or the anterior pituitary gland, which then secretes a hormone called THS, or thyroid stimulating hormone, which goes to the thyroid gland at the front of your neck. And the thyroid gland is then makes and secretes the hormone T4, or thyroxine predominantly.
I'll correct
right?
you. Oh, predominantly, yes, you were going to say.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay, thank you. And also a little bit of T3, right? Yeah. Yep. But T4 is ultimately converted to its active form, T3, which I'll try to name here, triiodothyronine, in the peripheral tissues in our body. But the thyroid gland also, like we said, releases a little bit of T3. So T4 can also be then converted to reverse T3. And this is something I learned from you a while back. And this is something that's very important to note. That is the ratio between T3 and reverse T3, right?
Yes, but also the T3 number in and of itself. So we look at both. We look at the actual number, and I still do the ratio. There are some people that just look at the actual RT3 number and still don't do the ratio. I still always do the ratio. So let's just talk about this ratio. There's automatic online calculators for this, so you don't have to do the math. And you do have to work with units of measurement when calculating this, because something in another country, the T3 might be a different unit of measurement, like PMOL versus NGDL. So anyway, forget the math, but when you do the online automatic RT3 calculators, it does a ratio between your free T3 result and your reverse T3 result. The number that you want is 20 or higher. That doesn't mean that you have a full-blown reverse T3 problem if it's 17. There are some people 15 and above is okay. You just would have to look at stuff. There might be people that are like, I have 0 symptoms, I feel great. Fine, no problem. But when it starts to get lower, so for example, when I had a reverse T3 problem, my reverse T3 result was high, but the ratio between that and the free T3 was about 11. Which is like terrible. So that is how we look at it. I think And I'll go ahead and describe again that feedback loop for you really quick, and people might need to re-listen to this. Forget about the first part. Just to make things simpler for people, here's what happens. When it's working normally and everything's great and nobody is taking thyroid hormones, like they're just doing good. This is how it works. Your brain will sense when your body is getting low in thyroid hormones. And when it senses that, it shoots a signal called the TSH to your thyroid. And this signal is just a wake-up call. Even though it's called thyroid stimulating hormone for TSH, it's actually not a hormone. It's basically just a wake-up call. And the body goes, all right, she's getting low in thyroid hormones. The brain sends the TSH signal to the thyroid and says, hey, wake up and do your job. And like you said, that job is to pump out a ton of T4 and a little bit of T3. T3 is the biologically active thyroid hormone. That's the one you need. T4 is just a slow release mechanism for it, so to speak. It's a storage hormone. It builds up and slowly releases. Why, though? Why do we have those two? If the only thing you actually need to survive is T3, which is really true, you could live your whole life with no T4 in your body for the rest of your life and do great on T3 only, then why do we have it? Because T3 is such a powerful hormone. It's like throwing gasoline onto a fire, and it's pretty quick acting, meaning it like peaks and dissipates, not completely disappears, but it peaks and dissipates within, like 4 to 5 hours. Whereas T4 is steady. So T4 gets up, stores, and then when you need it, like it'll just convert. But we have a lot of problems with that. What if the T4 that your body's making is not converting at all, not converting into the right amounts, or instead is converting into the inactive, like you mentioned, reverse T3? Then you've got some issues going on, right? So that's really how the feedback loop works. Now, when the thyroid releases a lot of T4 and a little T3, again, throughout the day, the T4 will convert when everything's working properly. And whatever T4 doesn't get converted that day will naturally wash out and kind of be gotten rid of through the reverse T3. Reverse T3 is there as an emergency brake for you. Because let's say you ingested too much thyroid hormone or something is happening in your life. Let's say, for example, you're stranded on an island and there's no food somehow, like no fish, no food on this island, okay? Your body immediately is going to try to save your life, and it's going to dial back the feedback loop that we just talked about. It's going to go, no, 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 no. Not only don't send the signal or send a weak signal, and don't convert into T3 because she can't afford to burn any fat right now. She doesn't have any food. She's in a state of stress. Furthermore, I'm not going to allow her to get pregnant. She can't afford to have a baby right now. So for the man, that would decrease his sex drive, right? For the woman, it would create a miscarriage, a number one symptom of hypothyroidism, which is why it's very important before you get pregnant and during pregnancy to check in on this so that you don't have something like that happen that doesn't need to. So this feedback loop is really amazing. And, I could talk for hours about it, but essentially the package that needs to be delivered is T3. So without jumping to it, but I want to move into it. The most important test usually is the free T3 test. It corresponds with how you're feeling, usually. Now, the other tests are important too, but that is such a key factor. And that's what uninformed doctors don't test and haven't for decades. They just test the signal and they test the T4. But the T4 is useless unless it converts into the thing that matters, which is T3. So let's go back to the depression thing. We have more we have more receptors in our brain for T3 than anywhere else. So when you are low in T3, you can't access happiness. The neurotransmitters things are not firing the way they should. You're not getting enough dopamine, all of that stuff. That's why you get depressed. It's not that you're depressed because your body's falling apart and your hair is falling. Yeah, that's part of it. But it actually really is in here. You can't access happiness. It's really a horrible thing. But once you get your body the right adequate amounts of T3. So that's why the free T3 test, I can see almost anyone's free T3 and tell them how they're feeling. I could be like, this is how you're feeling, whether it's too high or too low. So the one of the mistakes that has been made for years, and I ask everyone listening, doctors, practitioners, or patients, has your doctor only tested your TSH or only tested your TSH and T4 and that's it? Because if that's the only thing that you've been getting tested for all of these years, or if you're a practitioner and that's all you are testing, I hate to say this, if you're the patient, you have been sorely mistreated. We're talking, in my opinion, malpractice level. Same with the other. If you're, if you're the doctor, you've been treating people horribly. Look, the doctor on my book, Dr. Gary Forsman of Middle Path Medicine, will admit, he said, look, for years, I probably hurt patients because we didn't know. We were taught something else. It wasn't until patients kept coming to him complaining, even though they were still on thyroid hormones. And he goes, well, wait a minute. Let me look deeper into this, as a great doctor should. That's what you want from your doctor, the doctor that's going to geek out and go, hold on a minute. Why is this happening? Let me go look into this. You know what I'm saying? Most doctors don't do that. They have 15 minutes with you, particularly in the United States. And even so, like you said, it's really bad where you live. It's terrible in the UK. It's terrible in Saudi Arabia. It's bad in every country. I've talked to people in over 20 countries. This uninformed doctor problem is exactly the same everywhere. It's not that in one country they're misunderstanding one thing and not another. It's universal.
Yeah, and I feel like many doctors are waking up to this and talking about this, that we're always taught, even though these exact words don't come out, but we're taught to think in compartments. The whole body is one unit. It isn't 25 different separate compartments that don't respond to one another. And I think a lot of the problem starts there. And also, it's everywhere, like you said, systematic. Everyone is in a time pressure, and everyone needs to do their job in the least amount of time with the least amount of effort, and just move on to the next and to the next and to the next. And that's not good anywhere. And this is the same problem. Like you said, you've talked to people all over the world, and it's the same problem everywhere. But if we go back to our topic, the thyroid, just to educate people a little bit more. So basically, the thyroid gland is central to the body's energy production system. And this is what truly I'm really interested in, because everything revolves around energy. So the thyroid gland produces hormones, primarily T4, like you said, and also a little bit of T3, but T4 then converts into the active form, T3. And T3 increases mitochondrial respiration and drives oxygen use, and it promotes the burning of glucose efficiently, helping our cells to generate plenty of ATP, which is the usable form of energy for the cells to use, with minimal stress byproducts. So a healthy thyroid function keeps our metabolism high, our body temperature stable, and our energy levels consistent. So on a high level...
I'd love to chime in there and give an example before I forget, which is, thyroid hormones are not a drug of abuse, except for bodybuilders. So when I was first researching stuff on Google, this is again, this is so many years ago, every time I would type in liothyronine sodium, which is T3 thyroid hormone, or I type in T3, like 100 bodybuilding websites would come up. And I would be like, what? Like, what's happening? I don't understand what's happening. So I did all this research, and I found out that bodybuilders, before a competition, what they do is they jam themselves with a bunch of T3, the fat-burning, biologically active, mitochondria, all the stuff you just said. They jam themselves with it to burn as much body fat as humanly possible before the competition. But they got some problems. They have to take a bunch of other drugs to offset the catabolic nature of too much T3. So that's, again, not too hot, not too cold. It's also really dumb. They can screw up their thyroid. But that's who takes it. They take that for that purpose, as like a really potent fat burner.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you if there was anything you would like to add here. And I love this story or comment of yours, because I was involved in the fitness industry before I became a doctor, and it was kind of at the same time when I was in med school, and I was so impressed by how much I learned from the fitness industry about our body. It's really insane if you actually dive into it, how much the fitness industry, how knowledgeable everyone is in the fitness industry about the human body and the physiology of our body. So that's amazing.
Also, guess who a large portion of some of my clients have been over the years? Bikini bodybuilder competitors. Okay. Why? Why would someone who's doing that? Because they're starving themselves, essentially, to get there. right? And when you do that, we go back to the stranded island example. So if you're starving yourself, your body is like, oh my God, shit, we have to dial this back. You're actually hurting your fat burning capabilities. So what happens is they exhaust themselves, they do the chronic cardio, they're doing, these minimal calories, and they're sending the wrong signals, and then their thyroids get all screwed up and they come to me and I'm like, stop doing bodybuilding. Like, stop it, number one, and if you're going to do it, you better do it right or really understand the consequences. So the fitness industry has brought a lot of people to me because of that, and frankly, I was a victim of it as well, the chronic cardio and all of that kind of stuff. And look, I'm not saying I gave myself a thyroid problem. I don't know where it came from. I did eventually have a selenium deficiency. Did that do it? I don't know. I used to be a cigarette smoker many years ago. Could that, there's a million reasons as to how I could have gotten it. But the bottom line is that I have to take thyroid hormone replacement to be on hypothyroid and stay alive. So while thyroid hormones are not a drug of abuse, they have been used for that. It would be very difficult, like I said earlier, for like someone wrote me once and thought that another influencer on Instagram was abusing thyroid hormones because they were too thin. And I said, well, the thing is that you can't abuse it for too long until it backfires on you. So I really doubt that they're abusing it, because otherwise they would have really blown up at some point. And that's hyperthyroidism, which is like too hot. A great example of this is Missy Elliott, the rapper. She had Graves' disease way at the beginning of her career, and I'm sure it took a while for her to figure out, and there were probably uninformed doctors then. She was always really big. So people think hyperthyroidism is like you're really skinny and you've got bug eyes, and sometimes that is the case, but it's hypermetabolic. So if you do take too much T3 or your body's producing too much, you have an appetite, your metabolism's going, you're pooping all the time, but it becomes hypermetabolic and inflammatory, and eventually it kind of backfires and you become bloated and fat. So some people are like, oh, I would love to be hyperthyroid. You wouldn't. And it's way more dangerous because your heart rate can go to depths that could give you a heart attack. So hyperthyroidism is very dangerous, and you would much rather have hypothyroidism of the two problems.
Yeah, now when we talk about thyroid problems, that can, like you've touched on, mean a lot of different things. Could you explain the main categories maybe of thyroid disorders and how they differ in terms of symptoms and underlying causes?
Sure. So, well, for hypothyroidism, there's a couple things here. You can have hypothyroidism because you're starving yourself, like you're anorexic or you're overworking out. That's what we kind of call euthyroid sick syndrome. And that's probably what I have, or what I had from the beginning. And I say that because of my results at the time. Someone's results who have euthyroid sick syndrome, like they've starved themselves, accidentally or intentionally, to that point, you would have low numbers on TSH, T3, and T4. You would have really low numbers on all of it. Like it would just be like, we're not even doing anything. The others, just like you can get standard hypothyroidism, just it shows up. We don't know how. There are a million causes of this. Like they used to call the Midwestern states of the United States the goiter belt because a lot of people had enlarged growths on their thyroid gland, and they deduced that that was because the soil was not rich in iodine because it wasn't near a sea, so they started to iodize salt back then. But usually in modern times, people aren't having these kind of issues, and that's not what's spawning it. Hypothyroidism as well can have an autoimmune component. So you might hear Hashimoto's all of the time. It's very, very, it's huge. I mean, a large percentage of thyroid patients have Hashimoto's. I do not. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder that affects the thyroid. So type 1 diabetes, not type 2, the kind you give to yourself because you ate too much, but type 1 is, for example, an autoimmune disease where the immune system makes a mistake and it starts to attack the pancreas. And the pancreas says, F off, I'm not going to release any more insulin. And then the person has to be on insulin for the rest of their life. For MS, immune system makes a mistake and starts attacking the myelin sheaths in the body. And that's why people with MS have it's like a cord that you have on your computer. The sheath goes around and then they have their nerves sort of exposed and they have horrible symptoms. Again, each autoimmune system scenario, autoimmune disorder, your immune system's making a mistake. So in Hashimoto's, your immune system makes a mistake and starts to try to murder the thyroid gland, starting to kill it. One of the things we know for sure with all autoimmune diseases, particularly Hashimoto's, is gluten affects this. Gluten has a molecular mimicry component that feels like thyroid tissue to the body. So when you eat gluten, it'll exacerbate your immune system. So that is one of the reasons for the Paleo Thyroid Solution, the title of my book, because if you eliminate all of these offensive foods, you have the best chance at having your thyroid work properly. And also because the paradigm of a paleo diet and strategy is the most optimum for blood sugar hormone balance and adrenal balance, which is really related to thyroid as well. And I won't get too in the weeds on that. So hopefully I explained. Do I need to follow up with more on that? Did I explain that correctly?
No, you explained it perfectly. So we have hypothyroidism, and then you've talked about
Hashimoto's.
hyperthyroidism.
Right, sorry. Hashimoto's is the autoimmune disorder that affects the thyroid and can cause hypothyroid symptoms. You can also kind of swing in between both. You can have Hashimoto's and hyper, which is very, it's rarer, but it can happen. Then there's hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism can happen in a couple of ways. Through an autoimmune disorder, kind of like the Hashimoto's, but it's called Graves' disease. Okay. And that's again where the immune system makes a mistake and starts to overproduce, and your thyroid is pumping out way too much. And that is also hyperthyroidism. So you have hypothyroidism, and it could be caused by Hashimoto's or something else. And you can have hyperthyroidism that could be caused by Graves or something else. What would the something else be? Well, I had someone come to me who got hyperthyroid from having a tooth infection.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you could have an infection going on in your body that could have affected your body in such a way that it ignited this thing, and suddenly you're hyperthyroid. So are you truly hyperthyroid, right? Or truly hypothyroid, or do you have something going on, right? Some underlying situation. That's always worth checking out when looking at that stuff. And so really it's just hypo and hyper, and then there's Graves' disease for hyper, and there's Hashimoto's for hypo. Although, again, the caveat that some people can have both Hashis and Graves or be swinging in between both. Like for a couple of weeks, maybe they're really low, depressed, very hypothyroid feeling. And then, 2 weeks later, they're like bounding with energy and having like some of heart racing issues and things like that. So those are kind of the basics. And there are so many contributing factors to what could cause a thyroid problem, right? Nutrient deficiencies and all of the things. And that's why, again, getting a good diet and optimizing nutrients is your best bet for the first shot at solving it. And then if you have to go on thyroid hormone replacement, well, at least you have done all of the pre-work to get your body into a good baseline to receive these thyroid hormones and have them work correctly.
Yeah, and I'd love to get a little bit into detail about that in a short while, but I just first want to ask you a little bit about this reverse T3 problem. Could you explain what that is?
So, as we already described before, two hormones are released by the thyroid, T4 and T3. Or you could be swallowing T4 and T3, so it doesn't really matter. But the T4 is supposed to store and then convert into T3. But sometimes it does the opposite. It converts into the inactive form. When it does this, it essentially is like reverse T3 is sensing a threat of some kind, right? Maybe you are overstressed. Maybe you are anxiety ridden, not getting a lot of sleep. That could cause a reverse T3 problem in just a normal human being. We've seen it all the time. So stress, sleep, all that kind of stuff. But you could have a selenium deficiency. Selenium is responsible for the conversion. You could also have, and this is a very expensive test, most people don't do, but there are two enzymes that are related to the conversion of T4 to T3, D1 and D2. There are people who have a mutation where, like, they're screwed. They cannot convert T4 to T3 at all. So then they're really screwed. Well, except for they can take direct T3. So reverse T3 is like an emergency brake. It senses a threat and it doesn't want the T3 to convert into the powerful fire metabolism giving T3. And it goes, uh-oh, problem. And it will convert it into the inactive form, which is the reverse T3. So what's a reverse T3 problem? It's hypothyroidism. You could be taking thyroid hormones and they're not converting correctly, and suddenly you're like, why am I in thyroid hormones and I have all of these horrible hypothyroid symptoms? That's why you need to check the reverse T3. You also need to check it to just make sure the T4 is converting, because I told you T4 is useless on its own. It's absolutely useless unless it converts to the thing that matters, which is T3. So if you're not testing T3 and reverse T3, you have no idea what's happening with that T4. You're running blind and you're hurting all of your patients, and it's just absolute mayhem. So that is why. Now, the way that I talk about it, and this is obviously a metaphor, but when the T4 just starts converting into the inactive reverse T3 instead of T3, what that is it's like the reverse T3 is a guard standing in front of the cell, and it's not letting the T3 get in. So the T3 is just driving around the office building, and it's never punching into work to get paid. So that's what happens during a reverse T3 issue, which I had. So your free T3, when you have a reverse T3 issue, your free T3 might look normal, and the doctor go, well, it looks like it's fine. But if you don't test the reverse T3 and do the ratio and take a look at it, they could be seriously hypothyroid. So that can happen to people naturally who are not on thyroid hormones. So like if you are feeling sluggish, get your thyroid tested. If the reverse T3 is a little high and there's an issue there, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got to go on thyroid hormone replacement or anything like that. It just means look at your life. What's going on? Are you not getting sleep? Are you stressed? How's your nutrition? Like, take care of that, right? Optimize nutrients, give it a minute, and see if that won't sort itself out. Right? Because that just can naturally happen to anyone. Listen, you can get the flu tomorrow, okay, or COVID, and if you went and got your reverse T3 tested, it might look bad, right? So that's what we tell people: hey, don't get your thyroid tested when you're, in the middle of something awful. So that can make it high. And again, because the body is sensing a threat of some kind, and it's trying to dial back to save your life and not make you more metabolic than you should be in an emergency state. And so even though I'm personifying the human body, like literally it's not saying these things, but that's kind of what it is. And I think everyone needs to know your body is always trying to save your life. And that's what this reverse T3 is for. It's a very elegant feedback loop that has this built-in emergency brake. And same goes for people that get fat when they eat too much. You want to get fat. You don't want to be skinny fat. You'd rather get fat and become diabetic than be skinny and diabetic, because at least your body's trying to save you by pushing it all into the fat cells. Like, it's worse and more unhealthy to be skinny fat. I mean, obviously, we don't want anyone to be diabetic, but your body's trying to save you by making you fat. It's like, oh my God, keep storing this insulin. They're eating so many, Twinkies or whatever it is. And so that's what's happening in this situation too. Your body's trying to save your life. And so what messages are you sending it? And that's in the form of sleep, play, rest, nutrients, diet. All of that stuff is sending a message to our thyroid. Now, sometimes you can give it all the right messages and that's okay. Well, but you tried. You know what I mean? At least you resolved some things in the meantime. Yeah.
Yeah. So the perfect thyroid blood panel, could you just list it up? What should you always check?
Sure. So right off the bat, do I or do I not have a thyroid problem? What's happening? Or I'm on thyroid hormone replacement and I don't feel right. I'm not feeling awesome like everyone's talking about. Okay. First of all, for everybody, never, ever, never in your life take thyroid hormones before a thyroid test. Ever. I don't even care if your doctor tells you to do it. Don't. Because you're going to get a false result. The false result is going to be too high, because we test free T3 and free T4, and I'll run through the tests in a minute. But the word free means what's free, unbound, and available. Not what did I just swallow before going to the doctor and now it's peaking at 2 hours and I'm getting the results of the peaking, not what's free, unbound, and available. So you you just take it late that morning. If you wake up and you take thyroid hormones, you write yourself a note. When you get out of the lab, you can just take your thyroid hormones right after that. It's okay if you're late. Do not take them. That's the most accurate result. Always get tested within 2 to 3 hours after waking up. So even if you work a graveyard shift or you wake up at 11 a.m., that's okay. Just get tested within 2 to 3 hours after waking up. And don't do any food, just fasting. You can have black coffee, water, black tea, totally fine. Just don't take any supplements, don't eat food, just go in fasting. So that's the general rules for getting tested. And then here are the 6 main tests Do I or do I not have a thyroid problem? Now, this won't test for hyperthyroidism. Again, that's very rare. And I do have an entire wonderful, by the way, if anyone is suffering with hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, you can just go to ellruss.com/Graves, Graves, and there is a 40-minute wonderful audio with Dr. Forsman talking all about it. It's like first resource to go to if you think you have hyperthyroidism. Okay, so the 6 main tests. Do I or do I not have an issue? Or I'm on thyroid hormones, do I have an issue? You want to get the TSH tested. That's TSH. It stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. You want to get free T3, free T4, reverse T3. Now, those are 4 tests. TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3. Great. But you also, at least once in your life, need to get tested for 2 antibodies for Hashimoto's. Do you or do you not have Hashimoto's? That will make all the difference in dietary stuff, treatments. There's other things you can do with Hashimoto's. So there's 2 tests for that. One is called the TPO antibody. It stands for thyroid peroxidase antibody. The other one is called TG. It stands for thyroglobulin antibody. Most doctors only test for one. There are 2. You could be positive for one and not the other, or positive for both. So you want to rule that out. I've gotten tested for Hashimoto's a couple of times in my life. I will probably never get tested again. Don't have it. You know what I mean? Unless something happened symptomatically and I thought I could suddenly have it. But for the most part, if you get tested a couple of times in your life, you probably don't have it. So you need to rule that out. Now, after that, if that's all clear, like it shows 0 Hashimoto's, you may not need to get tested for those again, but that is something that if you do have, you will always need to get the antibodies tested with every result. You need to keep track of that. So let me run down the 6 one more time. TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and then the 2 Hashimoto's antibodies, TPO and TG, thyroid peroxidase, and thyroglobulin. Now, there are thyroid-related tests as well. That's the basics, okay? But if you want to do a little bit more than that to get a more comprehensive picture, then I always suggest getting a comprehensive iron panel, and that would have total iron, TIBC, which stands for total iron binding capacity. It'll have ferritin, FERRITIN, and it will also have percentage saturation. Those 4 tests is a comprehensive iron panel. You get that too, because hypothyroid patients often get low in iron, and so that might be when look. There's people that have come to me. All they had to do was take iron. Didn't have a thyroid problem. They were exhausted, had brain fog, all sorts of stuff. It was just iron. Easiest conversation I ever had. It was like, oh, this is all you need. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like sometimes it is that simple, right? B12, vitamin D. If you're worried about being pre-diabetic, then you would get the HbA1c. But for the most part, vitamin D, B12, comprehensive iron panel, and those 4 tests gives you a great full picture of what's happening. Can you do 100,000 other tests? Yes, you can. You can go see if you have heavy metals. Do you have heavy metals? Is heavy metals the reason why you have a thyroid issue? Okay, great. Get rid of the heavy metals. Go down that road first and see if that's the thing. There's a million things you can do, but as far as just do I or do I not or what's happening, those 6 tests, those initial ones, will really give it to you. And then the ones I added, boy, that's really comprehensive. And this is all in my free thyroid guide. Or if anyone were to book an appointment with me, it always shows you, hey, before you come to the appointment, you really want these tests for the most comprehensive evaluation. And so if your doctor, go look back. If your doctor has not taken these tests, or if you are a practitioner and you have never taken the reverse T3 test, you really need to either get into my course or get on this or call me for a session to get coached on it, because you are really hurting patients and you're just so much. You are able to fine-tune everybody's dose and everybody's care if you make sure you take these tests. And you can't do it with missing one of them. You just can't. There are doctors that test TSH, free T3, free T4, but they don't test reverse T3. Well, you're missing a whole bunch and you could be actually hurting a patient. I had that happen to me. Doctors were like, oh, well, just take more of this. I'm like, I have a reverse T3 problem. They're like, what's that? I'm like, oh my God, you're hurting me right now. You're suggesting to give me more of the thing that's already causing me the problem, because I had a reverse T3 problem. In that situation, you don't keep giving the person more of the thing that was the problem. That's T4. I need to make a note on this. T4 is the only thing that converts into reverse T3. which is why when someone has a serious reverse T3 problem or cannot convert T4 at all, their only option is to take T3 only thyroid hormone, which is the last choice resort of thyroid hormone. It's something I had to do myself. And it's not something you go to immediately, but it is a lifesaver because direct T3 doesn't convert into reverse T3. And it's really the only surefire way out of a reverse T3 problem if you can't fix it another way. Most people don't know this. Most doctors don't know this. And so then if their patient has a reverse T3 issue that's very serious, they have no idea how to treat it. And they're very scared of using T3 only. So that's another specialty and area of mine is T3 only and T3 only dosing. And that's something that, I wish more doctors would get a little bit, or let me just say this. It's not necessarily always T3 only dosing. There are people that have to be on T3 only, but sometimes it's a little bit of T4 and mostly T3, where the standard is mostly T4, a little T3, and a lot of the T4, T3 combinations to try to mimic the thyroid a little bit. But when you are talking T3 only, sometimes you can introduce a little T4 into that person's life at some point. But again, it's not necessary at all to human life whatsoever. Is it better to have it? Yeah, it is. Because if you can have T4 that sort of stores and then releases as needed, you have more of a steadier day. You have more of a steadier feeling sometimes, but it's not necessary. So I just wanted to make that point that T4 is the only thing that can cause a reverse T3 problem.
Yeah. And you've talked about different nutrients that are necessary, vital to thyroid health. You've talked about iron and selenium. Could you walk us through the most important nutrients and why they're so important? Is it because they're so important for the conversion from T4 to T3 mostly, or what is it?
Yeah, so for selenium, that's very important for conversion from T4 to T3. Absolutely. I mean, obviously it's got other benefits, but that's sort of where it's thyroid. And then, then we have iron. So let me just explain why I suggest taking that iron panel. It doesn't matter if you eat raw liver every day. If you're hypothyroid, your body can't hold on to iron. Let me just kind of break down how this could go. You're chewing your food, you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, it won't break it down, it gets to your stomach, you're not really absorbing the nutrients, so you get low in iron. I mean, when I was low in iron, and I'm talking bottom of the range of ferritin, and that's iron storage, and I had other bad iron labs, I was passing out, I had restless legs, I was an absolute mess, I was exhausted, so that can mimic a thyroid issue as well. And I mean, listen, ferritin or iron storage is how thyroid hormones get to where they need to go. So let's say someone has low ferritin and they start thyroid hormone replacement. They're going to run into problems. They're not going to be able to increase in a timely manner towards their optimal dose because they're going to run into problems with the low iron. So that's why we always check it, because classically, it doesn't matter if you eat ground beef every day. You won't be able to hold on to that iron if you're hypothyroid. Now, once you get unhypothyroid, your body holds on to iron, you don't need to take it. You're fine. You're done. I've gotten low in iron twice in my life through those 2 bouts of hypothyroidism, and I ate meat and liver and all sorts of stuff in between. Doesn't matter. The other thing I want to say about selenium is this. Everyone's like, oh, great, I'll do the natural thing and I'll go get Brazil nuts. Don't. Not going to work. They don't absorb as well. It's hard to keep them fresh. It's just not going to do the job. Don't eat 2 Brazil nuts a day. Take the supplement, the 200 micrograms. Now, 200 micrograms is usually normal for most people. If you have a good multivitamin, usually it has 1 or 200 micrograms of selenium in it, at least 100. When you are on thyroid hormone replacement or you're trying to fix and get your thyroid working right, you might want to go 200 to 400 a day. So people starting thyroid hormone replacement, especially if it has T4 in it, they should be taking like 200 to 400 micrograms a day of selenium, at least to start, if not forever. That's just part of your life now. So there's that. Then we have, heavy metals affect thyroid and mitochondrial function significantly. So I had heavy metals, getting tested and getting rid of something like that is very important. Of course, we have B12 that would go along with iron. So we want to see those at some really good levels. So classically, hypothyroid patients, are low in iron, B12, and vitamin D. And so, we really need to up the vitamin D. There are people who are like, I'm in the sun all the time. Not check your levels. Just because you're sunbathing every day doesn't mean you're absorbing it, doesn't mean your levels are great. So that's another classic one that hypothyroid patients are usually low in, are D, B12, and the iron. Ferritin, specifically iron storage, but usually a lot of the iron, the other iron results. And then, of course, look, I mean, there's nutrients that are in thyroid support formulas, whether it's ashwagandha or tyrosine, and iodine. People will look up thyroid problems and they'll go, "Oh, iodine! Oh, iodine's related to thyroid. I'll go out and take iodine. Maybe that." And this is where you get into trouble, because then people kind of overdose themselves on iodine, and it can cause a lot of issues and symptoms and things like that, and can exacerbate problems. So testing is important. Just test it, right? I once years ago thought, oh, iodine, blah, blah, blah. And then I took an iodine test and I had completely fine iodine. I did not need to be doing that. So those are the things that happen. People look at the nutrients and they're like, I'll just go jam all this stuff. And it's like, no, listen, if you just optimize some basic nutrients and you follow a good, pretty ancestral sort of primal Mediterranean type of paradigm, you should be good to go. And if you've stayed there for a while, 8-12 weeks, and nothing has changed and things are getting worse or your labs haven't improved, then you might need to think about thyroid hormone replacement. There's also something I want to say about that. People are very scared of thyroid hormone replacement. I don't want to go on medication. I don't want to go on a pill forever. Oh my God, I totally get it. And I used to be there too. But here's what I need to explain. It's a hormone. It's a hormone that your body is not giving you, and you just need to give it to yourself. That's all. It is a medication, technically. It comes from a lab and a pharmaceutical company. But here's the difference. I always use the example of the birth control pill. I have no ethical issues about it. I used to be on the birth control pill, but the birth control pill is a medication that manipulates your body into doing something it was never meant to do, which is why it comes with a laundry list of symptoms and side effects, okay? Same with a statin, anything that's doing something, right? With thyroid hormones, there isn't that laundry list of side effects, because you're just, if you do it correctly, you're just giving yourself the amounts that your body should have been giving you, and it didn't. That's all. It's one of the safest drugs to be on in the entire world. So I don't want anyone to be afraid of it. You can have successful pregnancies, all on thyroid hormone replacement, as long as the levels are good. No problem. And then the other thing too is people are like, well, can I ever get off of it? Absolutely, but you better fix it first. So if you have to go to thyroid hormone replacement to fix your thyroid, this is the goal. You get on thyroid hormone replacement, you get better, you get optimized. Once you're optimized, you clean it up. You do all the tests, heavy metal detox, whatever it is, because you can't detox from heavy metals if you're hypothyroid. So what you do is you have patients who are suffering for years and they're like, I tried this detox, I tried that. I'm like, oh, so you tried to detox on a body that's not working? I mean, you're not going to get very far. So that's really the suggestion. It's like you get on thyroid hormone replacement, you get better. Then from that standpoint, check all the things, optimize all the things, and then you can get off of it and see how it goes. It can take 3 months to recalibrate a thyroid. I don't suggest doing it before like your wedding, right? Or like an important trip, right? So do it when you know you might get fat, right? There might be 3 months in there where you might get fat, tired, and bloated and constipated. Or there might be some issues, right? So that's how you would do it. But it's absolutely, you can get off thyroid hormone replacement. So it's not like once you take it, now you're married to it for the rest of your life. But there's also nothing wrong with being on it for the rest of your life. I've been on thyroid hormone replacement for 20 years. Thank God. I wouldn't even be alive at this point if I weren't on it. So I just want to dispel any fears that, of people who are afraid of medications and stuff. It's really innocuous.
When we talk about important nutrients, in your opinion, what does it say about the optimal human diet? Are we able to get all of these important nutrients, the minerals and the vitamins that we need for a healthy thyroid function through a plant-based diet only? Or what's your opinion on that?
I'm anti-plant-based. For a variety of reasons. Well, it depends on what you call plant-based. If you're talking vegan or vegetarian, we have a problem. So here's the thing. Humans are designed to eat meat, period, end of story. If you want to make the choice not to do that, that's okay. You can do that, but you're going to have to supplement and you better be careful. You're going to need amino acids. You're going to need B12. You can't get that from vegetables. You have to take that supplement. A perfect example is I talk about this a lot. Years ago, I was at the gym and there was a woman there trying to convince someone to eat vegan. And I piped in. Usually I don't, but I piped in. I said, no, don't listen to her. Please eat meat. And she's like, oh, you want to kill animals? And she was like yelling at me. And I was like, oh my God. All right. Well, cut to a month later. I'm in the sauna at the gym, and she used to swim with me at the gym. We used to be swimmers, and I'm in the sauna, and she comes rushing in her bathing suit out of the pool, and she's like, I can't catch my breath. She's like, I swim every day. I don't know what's wrong. I take her out of the sauna, and I go, you're the vegan, right? She goes, yes. I go, when's the last time you had B12? And her mouth dropped open. She was like, oh my God, you're right. And I said, I wrote it down. I said, go, we had a health store right there. I said, you go right there right now and you get this and you put a lozenge in your mouth immediately. Okay. Did that. Thank you so much. 3 weeks later, she comes back. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, she's trying to tell everyone to go vegan. Okay. So you have to supplement if you're going to do it. Know that your choice to do it is going against your own DNA. Humans are meant to eat meat, plants, animals. You'd never cook a steak and give it to a horse because that would be mean. Because a horse has its own set of DNA that expects hay and, carrots and other stuff, right? Cows have 4 stomachs. They can eat all the grass they want. We would die if we tried to live off of grass. You have to honor your own DNA. And if you don't, because of personal feelings or whatever it is, I understand that. But that means you have to understand that you're really seriously barking up a rough tree that I haven't seen anyone survive on longer than 17 years. I've literally never met a vegan or vegetarian that has been able to make it past 17 years without health issues. At some point, it will creep up unless you do it right? So if you were a vegetarian, I'd say, oh my gosh, please eat eggs if you can, right? Or take away protein. And vegan, that's just very tough. And I feel like you're asking for a lot of problems, but you really got to make sure you supplement. The other thing I've noticed over all of my years of doing this is the following. Our cells need cholesterol. This is just fact. So here's what we find. Women will come to me and either they didn't get a period until age 20 because they were a child vegetarian or vegan, or they went through menopause at age 40, 10 years earlier, because they were a vegan or vegetarian. Why? Because you need cholesterols for all of your cells and your hormones, and they don't get a lot of cholesterol. So the science and what's happening tells you everything you need to know. I have no issue with people being vegan or vegetarian. What I have is an issue with people arguing that somehow this is how humans were meant to be. It's just, it's a very elitist position. There's, mountain people in the Andes mountain. You want to try to tell them to get a Beyond Burger or get amino acids to supplement. Like they're eating yaks. That's their life. It's very elitist to think that everyone in the world can afford or manage a plant-based diet. It's a very first world country type of thing. So I find them to be extremely unhealthy. I'm a big proponent of paleo primal eating. It doesn't mean you have to eat red meat. Maybe you only eat fish and eggs. That's fine. But humans need to eat things with parents, unfortunately. And if you don't, please get on that B12, the amino acids. Make sure you're testing. Make sure you're taking, the right multivitamins. Okay, can we just eat a proper paleo standard healthy diet and not take supplements? A little rough nowadays. Our soil is depleted of a lot of nutrients. Like my mother eats a great diet, and I asked her the other day, I said, you take a multivitamin? Like she takes vitamin D and probiotic and fish oil and some other stuff. She goes, no, because I eat so well. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that's taking a shot. I think it's good to be minimum. And how good is your diet? And do you supplement when things aren't that great? And maybe that's how you do it, where you're fractionally supplementing supplements. I take a multivitamin every day. There's some things that I take daily, and then there's some things I have around for in the moment, right? So yeah, I mean, obviously D, B12, iron panel, selenium. There is a test in the States, and I don't know about Norway, but they have, it's called like SpectraCell here, where they basically look at all of the nutrients, like, everything. And you could always do one of those and say, okay, hey, talk to your functional provider. Where do I need to supplement here? And get the levels right. So, yeah.
Can I ask you, are thyroid issues especially common among women? And if
Yes.
so, why do you think that is?
We don't know. It is disproportionately a women's issue. 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will get it. Why does this happen? Well, I've talked with my doctor about this, the doctor on my book, and could it be that we are just more overall designed? We're more sensitive. We have more, sensors, sensitivities, things like that that could be going on. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe women are the main people of like, I'm going to lose weight and diet, right? They're the ones that buy all the diet books, right? And so they're in that culture and maybe they got themselves into that where a guy might have been like, whatever, I'll eat whatever I want.
Mm.
There's not really a factual reason for it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Have you do you have you worked with a lot of women with postpartum thyroid issues? Many mothers notice changes after having a baby. So do you know
Yes.
what's happening hormonally during this time and how women should best support themselves? What is postpartum thyroid issues? Why does that happen?
Yeah. So it can go either way. You can be hyper or hypo after childbirth. So I have worked with plenty of women who've been in this situation. Usually it's this: they have the baby, they didn't have a thyroid problem, they're fine. And suddenly they're exhausted and they like get hypothyroid. Now, in a couple of these situations, it's literally been just the diet.
Yeah.
It's just like they were eating too many, grains and bullshit and just, crap. And they were like, okay, I got to get together. And they just started a clean paleo diet. And we're like, okay, great. I feel great now. There is no rhyme or reason as to why it would go hyper or hypo other than, wow, things are going crazy in the body at that point, right? And some people go to the postpartum depression or are totally fine right after a kid. The other thing, too, is that if you are pregnant and you're on thyroid hormone replacement, you need to get tested very often throughout the pregnancy. You are going to need more than you would have otherwise because now your baby's needs are more and it's going to be sucking that, thyroid hormone off of your initial dose. So what happens is they need to usually do more during pregnancy than they have the baby. Then they've got to like kind of right? You've got to watch it. You've got to wean off a little bit and watch that so that you're not then on too much after you've had the baby. So we don't really know why. I mean, I haven't seen a study that shows as to why a woman would become hyper or hypo after pregnancy. But my best bet would be, look, if you are pregnant and you know this is happening and you know when the birth date is, plan to go pretty paleo ancestral as much as you can after that and just to set the tone correctly for your body for those, months after. So it doesn't always need to be treated right away. Like I said, if someone finds themselves hypo, look at the diet, look at the nutrient optimization first, right? Before trying to take thyroid hormone replacement right away. And maybe that can get sorted out. I also feel that in these kind of situations, when it comes to hormonal balance stuff, I feel that Chinese medicine can be really, really helpful for people to also adopt that Chinese herbs and acupuncture with kind of getting things straight again after a pregnancy. I am not pregnant, don't plan on becoming pregnant. I'm 52. But if I were pregnant right now, I would make sure that, of course, my thyroid hormones were checked constantly. And then as I was approaching that due date and after the due date, I would probably get right into a strict paleo primal paradigm for like a couple of months after having my baby, just to ensure that I'm providing this great baseline for all of my hormones, including thyroid hormones.
Yeah.
And like I said, because paleo primal is not just about a list of foods that you can or can't eat, and it's not about necessarily a carb threshold. It is all of that, but it's also about the fact that it is the best strategy and eating paradigm to manage cortisol and glucose. And those two things are very important. When you are eating on a wrong paradigm and you're hypoglycemic, let's say, and you're going up and down, let's say you haven't eaten for hours, now you're like hangry and you're exhausted. Oh my God. See, the body doesn't like that. When you get low in blood sugar, then the cortisol, your adrenals are like, hold on, and then it jacks up, and now you want to be smooth. And a paleo primal strategy gives you fat adaptation, which gives you satiation, which makes things sort of more even, your blood sugar, your cortisol, everything. And so if you want to help your body help itself after pregnancy, I'd go right to a paleo primal type of paradigm.
Yeah, thanks for that. I want to touch a little bit on, you talked about some of the women that you've worked with. All they were doing is they were eating wrong. I've been in that situation. I've been a vegetarian and a vegan and everywhere.
Me
I
too.
am not anymore. But the number one kind of argument I get from people in general who are vegetarians or vegans or just pro vegetables overall is like, for example, selenium and iron. They say, I can this vegetable or this plant is full of selenium or full of iron, but what they don't get is that it's not that bioavailable. There are so many anti-nutrients in vegetables that bind chemically to these minerals so that we don't absorb it. So even though you're getting it in the food you're putting in your mouth, it's going out in the other end. You're not taking it into
Same
your
with the
blood.
same with grains. It's the
Yeah.
same with grains. Grains have too many anti-nutrients, and that's not just the problem with them, but
Yeah.
that is one of the problems with people like, well, it has great this or great that or making you're
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter, really. It's kind of canceling itself out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Before
And also,
we,
too, I would say this, like anyone
Yeah.
saying that, like, great, go get your levels tested.
yeah,
What do you mean? Well, you'd be like, well, I'm getting this in vegetables. Go get your level test. Blood tests don't lie. How's your selenium? Is your kale really doing it for you? I mean, and look, that vegan in the gym. She was eating right, but she didn't supplement. So look what happened to her. I mean,
yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I'm saying? Saved by a carnivore, right? Saved by
Yeah.
a carnivore. And honestly, thank God I was there. No, seriously. She had completely let that go, forgot about this aspect of her diet, was immediately horrified, realized, oh my God, she's right. I haven't taken B12 in forever. So
Yeah.
you got to pay attention,
Exactly. Before we wrap this up, Elle, could you tell us what are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that you hear about thyroid health, if anything?
I hear more, well, there are a lot of misconceptions from doctors on how to evaluate certain things. There's a misconception I just talked about on a reel on Instagram today, but I think it might be getting too in the technical weeds on some things.
Okay.
So the misconceptions, the misconceptions coming from patients come from the fact that they just don't know what they're talking about. They didn't learn anything. They went to their doctor. They're not getting helped. And they're just looking at 500 different Google pages and think like they're trying to figure it out. So a lot of those questions are just ignorant based, like it's not their intention to be ignorant. It's just like they're asking basic questions that, like, you know what I mean? I don't know if there's again, I think there's misconceptions with doctors. No, like there's misconceptions with patients. Like, for example, people they feel like, oh, keto gives you a thyroid problem, or going keto does this, or this causes a thyroid problem, or my God, the worst one is this medical medium wrote a book, and it was literally a best-selling book, and I'm so mad about it because he came out and was basically saying to everyone that they could just drink celery juice to fix their Hashimoto's. Like, when you drink a bunch of celery juice, first of all, it's high in nitrates, and what are you doing? It doesn't fix your thyroid problem. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions. Another one is people take over-the-counter desiccated bovine glandulars. Like, they'll see some ad for beef thyroid, take this, and this equals about just as much as this thyroid hormone. No, it doesn't. There's no thyroid hormones in those. So that's another misconception. People are like, oh, well, I'm taking thyroid hormones. And I'm like, really, what are you on? And then they tell me, and I'm like, did you order that over Amazon? There's no thyroid hormones in there. They can't sell it that way. So that's a big misconception among patients who think, I'm going to go the most natural way. I'll go get the bottle of chopped up beef thyroid gland. No, it has no thyroid hormones in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I found a lot of people being disappointed by things like that. Yeah, I don't know if anything else comes up, but yeah, I would say a lot, but they're all kind of specific or nuanced. Yeah.
Yeah. If someone could take just one action today to support their thyroid health, what would you recommend?
Change your diet, optimize your nutrients, period, end of story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, sleep, sun, and play, right? I cannot impress the importance of sleep. Sleep is, that's essential. Like, that's the number one. But yeah, diet and nutrients. And you know what? With that, look, I know someone that lost 40 pounds in a wheelchair. Didn't do a damn thing. Lost 40 pounds by just eating. Your body composition is 80% is your diet. It's 80%. So, you know what I mean? You can lose weight just sitting in a chair. So if weight issues are your problem, then you just follow this paradigm, and it's not restrictive at all. And it's not at all like suffering, like all these other kind of diets. It's more of an eating strategy. And yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'd start there, and then looking at the nutrients, and maybe going to a functional medicine doctor and going, all right, hey, you know what I'm saying? And always get your thyroid tested comprehensively, because you could be suffering in a way like, you guys all know Oprah Winfrey. We have I bring her up because I watched her my whole life. She's had thyroid, she has Hashimoto, she had thyroid problem. We can see it right there. And even Oprah Winfrey, who's worth, I don't know, a gajillion dollars, she can't find a doctor who knows what they're talking about. I heard her say one time that she went to go fix her Hashimoto's by going to Hawaii and eating soy for a week. Or something ridiculous, like 20 years ago I heard this. And we've all seen her struggles. So she can't even find a doctor to help her. Now, I don't know, and I think now she might be on the like GLP-1s and stuff like that, and she lost some weight. But we've watched her struggle for decades, right? That's hypothyroidism right there in action. Untreated hypothyroidism. That's literally what we were watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Thyroid health is like, it's critical for overall good metabolic health and energy balance. Could you just, to wrap it up, explain a little bit as a finisher how this ties, how metabolic health and energy balance ties into thyroid health?
Your thyroid is really your thermostat, and it's not just for the temperature, but it's like how high and how hot your fat burning is going to be, right? So it's absolutely related to metabolism, methylation, everything that's happening in your body, all of the things that, like detox, like you can't detox, your liver is not going to do its job as well. Everything's not going to do its job as well because the signal from the thyroid is all slow, sluggish, and not enough T3. So, so hopefully that helped a little bit. I don't know if I fully answered that the way you wanted me to.
Yeah. I was just thinking to wrap this up, and you did that, and we've been talking about this throughout the podcast, what we need to do to support our thyroid health, and this all comes together because, like I said earlier, we're one big unit. We need to support our metabolic health to support our thyroid health, and vice versa, and to keep a well-functioning body. So I really hope that your explanations have empowered someone, because it's the first time I heard you speak. I'd heard of your book, but when I heard you speak for the first time, I was like, who is this lady? And I really wanted to just,
So it's probably all fired up. You're like, who's she all fired up about?
Yeah. Yeah. But is there anything you would like to add before we finish?
In the free thyroid guide is all of the tests and the peripheral tests that we talked about today. And then there is a free video series that goes along with it, me explaining that whole thyroid feedback loop. So get in there and start to learn all that you can about this, because that's the fast track way to get better. Because I guarantee you, your doctor probably doesn't even know as much. And so the more you know, the more you're able to educate or help them practice medicine with you. So that's my biggest message right there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such an insightful and empowering conversation. I know that my listeners will walk away with a much deeper understanding of thyroid health and how crucial it is for overall energy and our well-being. So thank you so much for that, Elle.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find everything about you? I will put that in the show notes for the episode, but where can people find
everybody can just go to elleruss.com. That's ELLERUSS.com. But if you want to go right to my free thyroid guide, just freethyroidguide.com. I am most active on Instagram, although I am on most of the major platforms, but that's really where I'm most active. And yeah, reach out. You can shoot me an email from my website, or just take a look at the free thyroid guide and, dance around there and see, sometimes that's all it takes. Or sometimes listening to a few free podcasts is all it takes for someone to go, oh, hold on. I think I heard about my particular thing, and they go and fix it. I had a woman came to me once, and she said, she was very smart, and she said, I listened to every single podcast you've ever done over 10 years and read your book, and I pieced it together, and I figured out what my problem was. And she's a great example. Her testimonials on my website. She's very slim and trim. You would never know she had a thyroid problem. Her cholesterol was 600. 200 is like, right, but is okay, but like 600. The only reason she had a cholesterol problem is because of her thyroid. That's it.
Yeah.
They took heart tests. They wanted to put, so you know what I'm saying? So you don't even have to, I have so many free resources for people, right? That you could just go out there and learn as much as you can without even buying my book. And that's kind of how I want it, And then, of course, people can work with me and I can handhold them through things, and I have a course. But freethyroidguide.com or elleruss.com.
That's a good place to start. Thank you so much, Elle.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you're looking for more information or want to check out any studies I reference, head on to my website, babyletsmove.com. You can also join me for a workout through my app called Baby Let's Move, available in both App Store and Google Play. And don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and YouTube for even more content. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider giving it a 5-star rating or a like and share it with a friend. It really helps me reach more amazing listeners like you. Until next time, keep moving and stay healthy.